The invitation. The crystalline spires of New Geneva gleamed in the setting sun as Ambassador Sarah Chen studied the holographic message for the 100th time. The Galactic Concordet's invitation to Earth seemed perfect, too perfect. After 2 centuries of ignoring humanity's attempts at contact, their sudden interest set off every warning bell in her diplomatic instincts. "Play it again, Aria," she commanded her eye assistant. The hologram flickered to life, showing High Speaker Zaxalian's imposing figure. His iridescent scales caught the light as he spoke, mandibles moving in what their xenologists claimed was a gesture of peaceful intent. "People of Earth, the Galactic Concordat extends its hand in fellowship. Your species has shown remarkable progress, and we believe the time has come to welcome you into our ancient alliance. We offer knowledge, technology, and protection. All we ask is peaceful cooperation and mutual respect." Sarah muted the recording, her dark eyes narrowing. 25 years in the diplomatic course had taught her that nothing came without a price, especially not from a civilization that had watched humanity struggle through its early space age without so much as a greeting. Aria. Compile all known Concordat first contact protocols with other species over the last millennium. Processing, Ambassador, the AI responded. Warning. Data is limited due to Concordat information restrictions. Show me what you have. The office wall transformed into a massive display, showing the timeline of the Concordat's expansion. Sarah's breath caught as patterns emerged. Every civilization they'd welcomed had followed a similar path. Initial prosperity, followed by gradual resource depletion and economic dependence on the Concordat. The door chimed, interrupting her analysis. "Enter," she called, not taking her eyes off the display. Admiral James Harrison strode in, his weathered face grave. "You've seen it too, haven't you?" he asked, gesturing at the timeline. Sarah nodded. "They're not looking for allies. They're looking for vassals. The Security Council meets in an hour. What's your recommendation?" Sarah stood, smoothing her formal diplomatic uniform. "We accept their invitation." Harrison's eyebrows shot up. "You can't be serious." A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Oh, I'm very serious. But we accept on our terms, not theirs. And while we're smiling and negotiating, we prepare." Prepare for what? For the moment, they realize humanity isn't as naive as they think. She turned to the window, watching as ships from a dozen Earth nations moved through the atmosphere like silverfish. "We've spent 2 centuries being ignored by the galactic community, Admiral. 2 centuries building our strength, developing our technology, and most importantly, learning to stand united." Harrison moved to stand beside her. "The Concordat's fleet is vast. If this goes wrong, it's going to go wrong." Sarah interrupted. "But that's exactly what we're counting on. They expect us to either reject their offer and remain isolated, or accept it and slowly submit to their control. They don't expect us to have a third option." She activated her secure comm unit, connecting to the highest levels of Earth's government. "This is Ambassador Chen. Implement Protocol Trojan Horse. Authorization Chen Alpha 79 Delta." Across the planet and throughout the solar system, hidden facilities hummed to life. In asteroid bases and underground bunkers, ships that officially didn't exist began powering up their systems. 2 centuries of paranoid preparation were about to pay off. "Send our response to the Concordat," she ordered Aria. "Tell them Earth is honored by their invitation and requests a formal delegation to discuss terms of admission." As the message transmitted across light years, Sarah turned to Harrison. "Admiral, how long until the 7th Fleet can be ready?" "The official 7th Fleet. 2 weeks. The real one. It's been ready for years." Sarah nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. "Good, because we're about to teach the Concordat a lesson about underestimating humanity. They think we're going to be grateful for their table scraps. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you try to cage a species that spent its entire history preparing for this moment." The sun finally set over New Geneva, casting the room in shadows. In the darkness, Sarah Chen smiled, knowing that across the vast expanse of space, the Concordat was about to learn that humanity had never been alone by circumstance. They had been alone by choice, using their isolation to prepare for exactly this moment. The game was about to begin, and Earth was playing for keeps. Hidden agenda. The Concordat's diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace with all the subtlety of a peacock's display. Its crystalline hull caught Earth's sunlight, fracturing it into 1,000 rainbow patterns, a calculated show of technological superiority that made Sarah Chen suppress a smile. In her experience, those who needed to showcase their power usually feared losing it. From her position aboard the EDS Artemis, Earth's premier diplomatic vessel, Sarah watched the alien ships approach. Behind her, a dozen of Earth's finest analysts monitored every emission, every energy signature, and every communication from the Concordat vessel. They weren't about to miss any detail, no matter how small. Ambassador, Lieutenant Maya Patel called from her station. We're detecting significant scanning activity from their ship. They're probing far deeper than diplomatic protocols allow. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. Let them look. They'll only see what we want them to see. Earth had spent decades perfecting its deception technologies. The Concordat's scans would reveal an Earth that appeared technologically impressive enough to interest them, but not advanced enough to threaten them. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing High Speaker Zaxxalian in all his alien glory. His iridescent scales seemed to ripple with barely contained excitement. Ambassador Chen, we are honored to meet humanity's representative in person. The honor is ours, High Speaker, Sarah replied, bowing precisely the amount their cultural briefings had indicated, not an inch more or less. Earth awaits the opportunity to learn from the Concordat's vast experience. As the formal greetings continued, Sarah's neural implant buzzed with encrypted updates from Earth's intelligence network. In the shadow of Saturn, hidden sensors were tracking 3 cloaked Concordat vessels, conducting detailed surveys of the solar system. Near Mars, their probes were analyzing human mining operations. They were mapping everything: resources, defenses, infrastructure. The High Speaker's voice brought her attention back to the conversation. We have prepared a detailed proposal for Earth's integration into the Concordat. Our analysts suggest a 10-year transition period, during which we would establish permanent advisory positions in your major governmental institutions. Advisory positions. Sarah kept her tone curious, interested. Inside, she was counting the red flags. Merely to help smooth the transition, Zaxxalian's mandibles clicked in what their xenologists had identified as a gesture of reassurance. We would also need to establish several military bases, for your protection, of course. A galaxy can be a dangerous place for emerging civilizations. Sarah's neural implant buzzed again. The hidden sensors had detected quantum communication bursts between the Concordat's cloaked ships. They were coordinating something. That's a generous offer, High Speaker, she said, buying time as her analysts decoded the transmissions. Though I admit, the speed of the proposed integration concerns me. Surely a more gradual approach. Ambassador, Zaxxalian interrupted, his tone shifting subtly. You must understand that the Concordat's protection is contingent on full compliance with our integration protocols. Recent events have made the galaxy unstable. We would hate to see Earth left vulnerable. There it was, the threat wrapped in concern, the velvet glove over the iron fist. Sarah's implant delivered the decoded transmission. The Concordat ships were mapping strategic strike points across Earth's infrastructure. They were preparing for military action if diplomacy failed. I understand completely, Sarah said, allowing a hint of relief to color her tone. Earth would never want to appear ungrateful. The High Speaker relaxed visibly, clearly believing he had successfully cowed the primitive humans. Excellent. We can begin implementing the first phase immediately. Our advisory teams are already prepared. A priority alert flashed across Sarah's neural feed. The cloaked Concordat ships had begun moving into attack positions, hidden from conventional detection methods. They were hedging their bets. If Earth refused their terms, they would launch an overwhelming first strike. But Sarah had expected this. It was, after all, exactly what the Concordat had done to the last 3 civilizations they'd invited to join them. The difference was, those civilizations hadn't spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. "High Speaker," she said, her voice taking on a warmth that didn't reach her eyes. "Before we proceed, I wonder if you might clarify something for me." She gestured, and her ship's AI displayed a holographic map of the solar system, including the positions of the Concordat's hidden ships. Zaxxalian's scales lost their luster. "I don't understand. There must be some mistake." "No mistake, High Speaker. We've been tracking your ships since they entered our system." Sarah's warm diplomatic mask fell away, replaced by steel. "Now shall we discuss the real terms of our relationship with the Concordat, the ones that don't involve treating Earth as another conquest?" The High Speaker's mandibles clacked in agitation. "You dare." "We dare quite a lot, actually," Sarah interrupted. "And you're about to find out exactly how much. Because while you've been busy planning your invasion, we've been implementing plans of our own." Throughout the solar system, hidden sensors tracked the Concordat ships as they began powering up their weapons. But Sarah Chen didn't flinch. Everything was proceeding exactly as humanity had planned. The real question was, how would the Concordat react when they realized they weren't the hunters, but the hunted? Operation Shadow. Deep within the asteroid belt, in a hollow space that officially didn't exist, Admiral Harrison stood in the command center of humanity's true fleet. The massive cavern-housed ships that no alien race had ever seen. Vessels that combined 2 centuries of human innovation with reverse-engineered technology from crashed alien scouts that had ventured too close to Earth over the years. "Status report," he commanded, watching as hundreds of stealth vessels powered up their systems in perfect silence. "Shadow Fleet at 98% readiness, sir," his XO, Commander Diana Rodriguez, reported. "All ships maintaining quantum stealth fields. The Concordat sensors are still blind to our presence." Harrison nodded, his attention fixed on the tactical display showing the Concordat's ships surrounding Earth. They thought they held all the cards. 3 advanced warships against what they believed was a primitive civilization. The arrogance was exactly what humanity had been counting on. His secure quantum comm crackled. "Admiral," Sarah Chen's voice came through. "The High Speaker is about to make his decision. Are we ready?" "Shadow Fleet is in position," Harrison confirmed. "Though I still think we should have shown more of our hand earlier, kept them from getting this close." "No," Sarah's voice was firm. "We need them to commit fully to their attack plan. Half measures won't work. We need to break their power so completely that no other alien race will think of Earth as easy prey again." On the main display, the Concordat's flagship was launching what they thought were undetectable probes toward Earth's major cities. The aliens' arrogance was almost painful to watch. Every probe was being tracked, its data feeds intercepted and modified to show exactly what humanity wanted them to see. "Signal from Ambassador Chen," Commander Rodriguez announced. "The High Speaker has rejected our terms for equal partnership. They're moving to their backup plan." Harrison allowed himself a grim smile. "Right on schedule. Begin Operation Shadow. Phase 1. Throughout the asteroid belt, humanity's hidden fleet began to move. Quantum stealth fields, developed through decades of research, kept them invisible not just to sensors, but to the very fabric of space-time. The Concordat ships, believing themselves hidden, had no idea they were being surrounded. "Sir," Rodriguez reported, "the Concordat vessels are powering up their main weapons. They're targeting Earth's major defense installations. Let them think they have the initiative," Harrison ordered. "Maintain stealth protocols. Wait for the ambassador's signal." On the diplomatic channel, they could hear the High Speaker's voice, dripping with condescension. "Ambassador Chen, your defiance is futile. Accept our terms now, or face the consequences of your primitive arrogance. Sarah's response was calm, almost amused. High Speaker, I don't think you understand. We're not refusing your terms out of arrogance. We're refusing them because we have better options. You have no options. The alien leader snarled. Our ships are in position to. To what? Sarah interrupted. To launch an attack from coordinates we've known about for hours. To use weapons we've been studying since you entered our system. Please, High Speaker, did you really think we spent 2 centuries in isolation just developing social media and reality shows? Harrison watched as the tactical display showed the Concordat ships beginning their attack run. Their weapon systems were charging, shields raising, all according to the combat doctrines that Earth's intelligence services had spent decades studying. All ships, Harrison commanded, prepare for Phase 2. Weapons hot, but do not disengage stealth systems until my mark. The Concordat flagship launched its first strike, a massive energy burst aimed at Earth's supposedly crucial defense center in Nevada. The beam passed through what appeared to be a shield failure, striking the facility directly. On their sensors, it would appear as a devastating blow. In reality, the beam had passed through a sophisticated hologram, striking an empty desert. The real defense centers were scattered throughout the planet in locations no alien scan had ever detected. Sir, Rodriguez called out, the Concordat ships are launching their secondary attack wave. They're targeting what they think are our planetary shield generators. Harrison nodded. Let them waste their ammunition. Ambassador Chen, are you ready to show them what humanity's really capable of? The turning point. High Speaker Zaxxalian watched with satisfaction as his ship's weapons struck Earth's defensive installations. The primitive humans had dared to reject the Concordat's generous offer, and now they would learn the price of defiance. His flagship's sensors showed devastating damage to key military facilities across the planet's surface. Your defense systems have failed, Ambassador Chen, he announced, mandibles clicking in triumph. Surrender now, and we may still show mercy. On the view screen, the human diplomat's expression remained unnervingly calm. High Speaker, I have a question for you. In all your scans of our system, did you ever wonder why we kept Saturn's rings off-limits to mining operations? Zaxxalian's scales rippled in confusion at the apparent non sequitur. Your primitive mining restrictions are hardly relevant now. Actually, Sarah interrupted, they're very relevant. Admiral Harrison, if you would. The space around Saturn's rings shimmered. What had appeared to be ordinary ice and rock began to move. Thousands of objects were emerging, dropping sophisticated cloaking fields that had fooled the Concordat sensors for hours. Zaxxalian's blood ran cold. Where there had been nothing, now there was a fleet. Not the handful of primitive warships his intelligence had reported, but hundreds of advanced vessels unlike anything in the Concordat's database. Impossible, he whispered. Your species has only achieved spaceflight in the last 2 centuries. 2 centuries you spent ignoring us, Sarah corrected. 2 centuries we spent preparing. Did you really think we wouldn't notice your pattern of peaceful integration across the galaxy? Every species you've absorbed, every civilization you've subjugated, we studied them all. We learned from their mistakes. On his tactical display, more ships were appearing. The asteroid belt was coming alive with hidden vessels. Earth's moon shimmered as concealed hangar bays opened in its surface. What had seemed like a defenseless planet was transforming into a fortress world. Admiral Harrison. Sarah's voice carried an edge of steel. You may proceed with Phase 3. The human fleet moved with devastating precision. Quantum torpedoes, weapons the Concordat had fought, were centuries beyond human capability, streaked through space. They struck not the obvious targets, but precisely calculated weak points in the Concordat ship's defenses that only decades of careful study could have revealed. How? Zaxxalian demanded as his flagship's shields buckled under the assault. How could you have developed all this in secret? We had help, Sarah admitted. Every scout ship you sent to study us, every probe that crashed in our territory. We learned from them all. But mostly, we had motivation. You see, High Speaker, humanity has a long history of preparing for worst-case scenarios. When we looked to the stars, we hoped for friends but prepared for conquerors. The Concordat's support ships were already crippled, their weapons disabled by targeted strikes they never saw coming. Human vessels moved with impossible stealth, appearing and disappearing at will, striking from angles that seemed to defy physics. "Sir," one of Zaxxilion's officers called out in panic. "Their weapons, they're not just advanced, they're specifically designed to counter our defensive systems." "Of course they are." Sarah's voice was almost gentle now. "We've had decades to study your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. Every time you sent a ship to observe us, you thought you were gathering intelligence. In reality, you were helping us prepare for this moment." Zaxxilion watched in horror as his flagship's defenses failed one by one. Not through overwhelming force, but through precise, surgical strikes that spoke of intimate knowledge of his ship's systems. "You have two choices, High Speaker," Sarah continued. "You can order your remaining ships to stand down and open negotiations for a true equal partnership between Earth and the Concordat, or..." She let the alternative hang in the air. Around his flagship, Earth's fleet had finished neutralizing the Concordat's support vessels. Hundreds of human ships now hung in space, weapons primed, their true capabilities still largely unknown. "Your species," Zaxxilion managed, his voice hoarse. "You're not what we thought you were." "No," Sarah agreed. "We're not." Now about those negotiations. In the silence that followed, as the High Speaker stared at his shattered fleet, a fundamental truth became clear. Humanity had never been the primitive species the Concordat assumed. They had been a sleeping giant, carefully preparing for this exact moment. And now they were awake. New dawn. 1 month after the confrontation in Earth's solar system, Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Concordat's Great Assembly. The massive chamber, designed to humble visitors with its scale and grandeur, now held a very different atmosphere. Representatives from 100 alien species watched her with new eyes, not with the previous condescension reserved for emerging civilizations, but with the wary respect given to a power that had fundamentally changed the galaxy's political landscape. High Speaker Zaxxilion, his scales now a subdued shade of gray, addressed the assembly. "The treaty before us today represents a historic change in the Concordat structure. For the first time in our history, we welcome a new member not as a protectorate, but as a full and equal partner." Sarah kept her expression neutral, but she could feel the ripples of shock and disbelief moving through the chamber. Behind her, Admiral Harrison stood in his formal uniform, a quiet reminder of the force that had necessitated this change. "Some of you," Zaxxilion continued, his voice carrying a note of hard-learned humility, "have questioned this decision. You suggest that one demonstration of military prowess should not alter 10,000 years of tradition." He paused, his 4 eyes scanning the assembly. "To you, I say this: Earth has demonstrated not just military strength, but a level of strategic thinking and technological advancement that we fail to recognize. Their achievement is not in defeating our ships, but in hiding their true capabilities for centuries while preparing for every contingency." Sarah stepped forward to address the assembly. "The Earth Alliance does not come before you seeking dominion or revenge. We come seeking what we have always wanted: true partnership and mutual respect." She activated a holographic display, showing the new trade routes and defensive partnerships Earth had already established with some of the Concordat's smaller members. "In the past month, we have demonstrated our commitment to fair trade and mutual defense. Several member worlds have already benefited from our quantum shielding technology. Technology we developed not to conquer, but to protect." The assembly stirred. Many representatives have been shocked to discover that Earth's technological advances weren't limited to weapons. Humanity had developed everything from revolutionary medical treatments to faster-than-light communication systems, all hidden behind a carefully maintained facade of limited capability. "But there is something else you should know," Sarah continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Something that may help you understand why we chose to reveal ourselves as we did. With a gesture, she changed the holographic display. It showed a massive fleet of ships, but not Earth's fleet. These were Concordat vessels, positioned near the borders of multiple independent star systems. We found these battle plans in the Concordat's military database. Plans for the systematic conquest of every independent civilization in the sector. The High Speaker has already acknowledged their existence and agreed to their immediate termination. The chamber erupted in chaos. Many of the smaller member species had suspected such plans existed, but had never had proof. Now they were seeing evidence of how close they had come to losing their independence. Earth could have exposed this earlier. Sarah's voice cut through the tumult. We could have turned member species against the Concordat leadership. Instead, we chose to demonstrate our strength in a way that forced change without causing the Concordat's collapse. She turned to face Zaxxillion. Because despite its flaws, the Concordat has brought stability to much of the galaxy. It doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to be reformed. The High Speaker inclined his head in acknowledgement. And that reform begins today. The treaty before us not only welcomes Earth as an equal partner, but restructures the Concordat itself. No longer will we be an empire in all but name. We will become what we should have been from the beginning. A true alliance of equals. As the Assembly began their deliberations on the treaty, Sarah received a private message from Admiral Harrison. Shadow Fleet reports all Concordat battle groups are standing down. The old guard is accepting reality. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had achieved what had once seemed impossible, forcing change not through conquest or submission, but through careful planning and the wisdom to know when to show strength and when to show mercy. The galaxy was entering a new age, and humanity, after centuries of watching and waiting in the shadows, was ready to